All right. This is Tuesday, May 19th. This is both regular and advanced. For those of you who have fallen behind or not watching it live and you click on this video, this is an optional video. All of my videos this week are completely optional and not a thing that you have to do. They're just going to be stories that connect back to my background. Chanel, I see your hand. I'll get to you in just a moment. Let me get to the next screen and then I'll hook you up from there. So for those of you who want to watch and listen, you're more than welcome to. It's also why I'm going to guess that if you look down at the time, I mean, you guys watching it live, you can't do this. But the others of you who watch down there in the corner, I'm assuming it might be a longer video just because I'm going to sort of babble and go into the story. And normally I have to get speedy version because I have like a limited class time, but I don't have limited class time. So, and I'm a little nervous. You guys don't normally get to see nervous version of me, but when I do these stories at the end of the year, it is actual nervous version of me because unlike school teaching where I can just kind of randomly make stuff up, I don't really care about it as much. Getting into today's stuff, it means a lot to me. It sort of like connects to my whole this heart thing. And so I'm freaked out a little bit that I'm going to mess things up. So nervous me tends to get a little freaked out and babble. So we're going to see how things go. Chanel, let me unmute you for a second as I get my PowerPoint set up as we get before the story. So Chanel, you have a moment. What is going on?
So like this week would have been the last week of school?
Yep, you are correct.
That's scary.
I know. I feel the same way. So yeah, I mean, like in a normal school year, we would be done like as of this coming Friday. And so I would be doing my stories at this time normally. So yeah. Agreed. Wow. Nick, you have a moment here to get ready. What's up? Uh-oh, hang on. I thought I did it. Chat. No, not chat. I need to do participants. There we go. And Nick, there we go. What's up, kid?
I just wanted to say, I didn't want to do this because I don't want to see you nervous. It makes me feel bad. But my mother wanted me to do this. So that's why I'm here.
Well, if it makes you feel better, you could put me on mute and I would have no idea that you were not listening to me. And you'd be.
I want to hear your story, though.
Oh, well, that definitely makes it a little bit tougher then. So I appreciate you sharing. Because I put a kid in every day. Today just happened to be Toby's day. Every day I teach, I put a kid in the date up there.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it's a thing I enjoy. Giles is coming in. Elijah, let's make it a speedy one. What you got, Baldy?
Okay, so after this little story you're about to tell us, are we gonna do like a Socrativ like we always do?
You're gonna find out in just a moment. It's coming up on my 3 screens. Yeah. All right, so information that I have for you guys for today. One, Skyward is updated as of, I think, like last night. I had some kids who are still sending me late assignments this morning. I did not get those put on yet, but I'll be doing that as soon as we get done. So I am trying to update Skyward every day as you guys turn stuff in. So any homework you sent me should be updated, but the tests and quizzes, I have to go back and look those up. There are no more official new grades for me. I am done doing new grades unless you do choose to do the extra credit, which is optional. You're more than welcome to do the optional extra credit. If you don't want to, I'm fine with that. Again, if you have no missing assignments for me and you've turned in everything, I will make your 4th 9 weeks grade at least as good as your 3rd 9 weeks grade. But I'm going to do my best to look for them. But if I've not adjusted yours, you might want to send me a message. Be like, hey, Mr. Broviak, I've not missed anything. I've been following along the whole time. Or for those of you who turned them all in late, I'm okay with that too. I understand the trauma and the struggle and all the stuff that goes into it. So if you ended up turning it in late, I'm perfectly fine with that one too. As long as you've just got it all turned in, that's all I really care about. So just get it all turned in and say, hey, make sure my grades match, and I'll make sure that your grades match. Juanita, you come in. I don't see you in a car with a whole bunch of gremlins behind you. I'm thrown off.
No. No, we're not going anywhere yet. But I'm about to get off and do Zoom on my phone so I can catch it on my TV. So okay. I'm gonna leave.
If it pops up, I'll let you in. Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you, kiddo. And then let's see from there. All remaining Zooms and Socrativs are optional going from here throughout the rest of this week. So as far as the one tomorrow and then the one Thursday, tomorrow's story, I'm going to tell you one about me when I was in college, and then Thursday is not a story so much. What kind of is little stories? It's more my last big impactful talking to you day. And so Thursday is the one, again, that kids remember, but it's not stories about me, it's stories about you, which might be confusing, but you'll get there and figure it out. Also, we're doing schools drop-off for 7th graders next Thursday. I have signed up to work it, so I will be there all day from like 10 to 6. So if you guys come and do school drop-off stuff, I should be there. So I'll be wearing a mask if you want to come up and give me a high five, and I'll dip my hand in like lava to like melt off all your germs, but that's fine. I'll be there if you want to drop stuff off at school. It's to drop off iPads or school materials and stuff like that. You cannot get into your lockers, unfortunately. That won't be coming up until later, until like July. But you can at least drop things off at the school, and I will be there. If you want to actually see me in person, will be there for that one.
Or just come to our house.
Or much like Perla, you can just randomly show up at my house, as happened yesterday, to drop off a birthday gift, which was awesome and made me giggle, which is another way of doing it. Oh, how did that all of a sudden rain questions? Morrissey, how did I inspire questions already? What's up?
Can we ride our bikes to the drop-off thing, or do we have to be in like a closed vehicle?
You know, that is a solid question. I'm going to go with you can ride a bike until they, because I have no idea. And the worst that happens is you show up with a bike and they go, "Are you on a bike?" And you go, "Yes." And they go, "Now you have to leave." And you go, "But I'm already here." And you throw your stuff and you bike away. So as of now, I've not heard that you can't. So I say go for it.
Did you know yesterday was also Via's birthday?
Yeah, she emails me every single day. It's hard to miss. Blizz and young Blizz, what's up?
So sorry. Drop off the gospel according to Larry book. You said we could drop off the gospel according to Larry.
Yes, and I'll be sending out reminders on that. So yeah, definitely bring your animal. And again, if you know where my house is, you can bring that book to my house and just drop it off, and I'm fine with that too. Or you can bring it next week, and I'll take it from you guys then. And then I don't have to track you guys down in 8th grade. So that'd be perfect.
If your name is Bronwyn, stop by our house.
If your name is Bronwyn, apparently you should creepily stop by our house. Kluber, what 40-year-old man have you gotten into a fight with recently? Is it not letting you unmute? There you go, Klubes.
Okay. Well, no, she already took my question. I forgot to put my hand down.
Team Truex and younger X, what's up?
We just wanted to say happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Truexes, my XIs. It was a pretty good birthday. I got a ring light, which I was pretty excited about. And my oldest daughter drove my car for the first time, so that was kind of scary. And she didn't kill anyone, but yeah, we'll take it as a win. And I got Marco's pizza and cake and watched a movie with my daughters. As an adult, that was a pretty good time. Lizzie.
Okay, you said that this iPad drop off was this Friday.
Next
and then
Thursday.
You just said it was next Thursday.
Yeah, because it's next Thursday. The one this Friday is for teachers to go into the school to get supplies. For kids, it's next Thursday. 8th graders is next Friday. 7th graders next Thursday. Okay, good stuff. Again, if you've not taken your final test for either Outsiders or Gospel, if you're going to throw it up there, all of my quizzes and tests are open. You guys are welcome to them. And then to there. Again, all of my e-learning is on my website. You can find any past day, find that video, and send in the stuff. I will take, once again, I have not closed out any assignment going all the way back to March. You can do any of that and turn it in, and I will happily take it from you. Schedule for this week, all of our remaining Zooms are going to be at 10:30, although as you've seen, I don't think we get started till 10:45. I open at 10:15 just because we have, I think, 80 kids in here right now or something like that. So it's a lot of people, 76. And so it just takes a while to get everyone in. And apparently we all miss other humans. So talking to people sort of brings us happiness, but it's not the end of the world. And then I record and we should be good to go. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about my mistake in college. And then Thursday, I'm going to give you guys advice. Here is your extra credit Socrativ for today. Again, you can screenshot it. I will throw it up again at the very end. And so this is going to be only if you want to do it. It does give you up to 2 extra credit points if you feel you need them. But if you ever turned in like a homework in late, because I charge you 2 points for late homework, it'll make up for that one. Today's room name is Bad Breath. B-A-D-B-R-E-A-T-H. Bad Breath. And then also, by the way, I don't know if you guys remember, but the name to get into today's Zoom was Spray. Those are both clues as to today's story. One is spray and one is bad breath. So the question is, what is your prediction for today's story? If you knew nothing about what I did, you can either go ahead and do it now, or you can wait till the end and then tell me what your prediction was. But I'm curious what you think that happened that caused me to get arrested when I was in junior high, where your clues are going to be spray and bad breath. And a quick timeout on this one. So this is the thing I don't get to do during the normal school year with my kids. Like, I don't get to give them little teasers like this. So I'm kind of enjoying this part of it with like the Socrativ and the Zoom and giving you guys little teasers, just knowing little bits of it, like the idea of the bad breath and the spray. So I was enjoying myself and sort of see what ideas you guys come up with. So that's completely up to you. If you choose to do it, then you should be good. Okay, now it is time for story. So first off, quick review. I figured I'd just throw the house lay up there for you. So for those of you in case missed the first one, my first arrest back when I was 8 years old, when I was in 2nd grade, was me breaking into a house. I enjoy starting with that story because I find that a fairly funny story. I mean, given I was in 2nd grade, I didn't really know what I was doing. It wasn't like I was going around like shooting people or trying to pick fights with hobos. It was more the fact that I was just trying to get into an empty house and enjoying myself. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was completely wrong. So that's a fun story. The story we're going to get to today is a tougher story for me to do. The reason being is that it is not a happy, fun, I was a goofy kid story. It is a flat out, I made a poor choice. I did a thing that was illegal. I knew it was illegal, and I still chose to do it anyway, and I got arrested for it. So this one is a tougher story for me to tell because the emotions are a bit more raw. Even years later, I still can easily bring up memories of what happened and stuff like that. So there'll be parts during this where I may need to do little pausey bits and stuff like that, but we'll get through it together. All right. So again, this is the house I broke into. This is me just psyching myself up by showing you guys old stuff. This is the house that I grew up in at the time. As you guys see it from there. So I can actually show you. So you see where that little red car is. If you go above it and then over one to the right, that was my bedroom when I was a kid. And so little kid me grew up in that little one above the right-hand garage. Ooh, another quick side note. Suddenly had a memory. So I was looking at my garage door, and now I think I've seen kids do this on TikTok. But when I was a kid, we first started doing it. So when I lived this house, I was an elementary kid, really small, and we figured out that on the garage door, on the inside of it, it has a handle that you can use in case anytime like the garage door breaks and you have to lift up the garage door. Well, we figured out when I was in, I think, 1st or 2nd grade, that you could grab onto that handle and you could have someone else hit the button next to the house that lifts the garage door, and it would lift you up into the air. And so my younger brother and I started doing rides where we'd grab onto the handle, the other one would hit the button, and the garage door would go up, and it would just lift you into the air. And we would just sit there and dangle with our little feet kicking as we got lifted up into the air, and you'd hold on for as long as you could, and like you'd drop and hit the ground. Or if they were knives, they'd hit the button again and you'd come back down. It was the best thing in the world. It was like a little roller coaster in our own house. Turns out that's really bad for a garage door opener motor, because we found that out one time when we were riding it up, and it goes, and it went right, and just the whole thing went and shot down and hit. And my brother, who was riding it, hit the ground, like it threw him over to the side, and like this huge sound like echoed throughout the house. And my parents came running into the garage. They're like, "What is going on out there?" And like my hand was up on the little button, and my brother was like laying on the ground crying, and like the garage door was like a little bit askew, and that did not go so well. That's not how I got arrested. That's just a random memory I had as I was looking at my old house in that garage, and a fun story that I could tell. So if you're a small person and you're thinking, hey, this would be a thing that I should do, I'm speaking to you, younger trucks. Do not do this. That would be a bad idea because it breaks the garage door and then your parents beat you and there's a lot of crying involved. Jackson, how could that possibly inspire a comment from you?
Can I try to crack the case of the teasers?
You cannot. Oh, muted. Out of luck. Good try. You'll just have to submit it on Socrativ now, and then I'll check it and find out. Juanita, what's up with you? Did you jump out and come back in?
My garage door does not have a handle on it, and I'm
I
very
see
sad
you.
because I wanted to do
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I actually did that when I was younger.
Yeah, it should have like a little handle near the bottom to like lift it up. But I'm watching yours, but no, I don't see any like to lift it in case it breaks. No. Well, maybe they got smarter after small children like me broke garage doors. Huh? Things we learn. All right.
Imagine being part of the cause that changing design had become.
All right. Enough fun stories. Now it's time for the all right. Enough giggling. Let's get to real stuff. All right. So, me getting arrested in second grade scared me enough that it prevented me from getting arrested again for a whole bunch of years. Fast forward, I end up going through like school, junior high. I make really good choices for the most part. I made honor society. I had good grades. But part of my issue was, and I might have mentioned this a couple times in class, I was what scientists called dorky. And I was not real good at this whole social thing. And so I really wanted to be popular, which is a thing I'll touch on coming up on Thursday. Like all throughout my 7th and 8th grade and beginning of freshman, my dream was to hang out with the popular kids. That's what I wanted to do. And so a lot of my poor choices and actions were spent trying to impress popular kids or hang out with popular kids in one way or another. So my freshman year, what I ended up doing was, okay, this was actually end of 8th grade. So the summer going between 8th grade and freshman year, so after junior high ended in 8th grade, I started shoplifting. There's just no easier way to say it than that. I got into it. I had a friend of mine. It was basically it started at school. And at school, there was a bunch of kids who were shoplifting, and I thought they were idiots. Not idiots because they were shoplifting. I thought they were already idiots. They were just like the dumb kids at school, and they were shoplifting and getting away with it. And I thought, if these kids are idiots and they're shoplifting and getting away with it, I'm a smart kid getting A's. I should be really good at shoplifting. So I started trying to shoplift. And the worst part is I was good at it. I was really good at it. It ended up being a skill that I ended up being really strong at being able to do. But I justified it in my own head. The kids I saw at school who were shoplifting like big expensive items. They would go out, CD players, you know what a CD is. We used to have, instead we had like digital music, you'd actually buy a CD and put it into a player. Kids would go out and steal, shoplift CD players from like Walmart, bring them to school, and then sell them to make money. And I was like, well, those kids are criminals because that's wrong. So being the dorky, nerdy kid I was, but attempting to be a criminal, I started shoplifting, but I only shoplifted 2 types of things, and that was it. I shoplifted candy and comic books. Those are the only things I would have let myself shoplift. I did not shoplift like clothing or electronics or things worth a lot of money. Everything I shoplifted was worth like $1 or less. But I did it a lot. I mean, it started at the beginning of that whole 8th grade summer. We'd go out to stores and I would find ways to shoplift comic books. I'm not going to tell you my methods, but it was way easier than it should be because a lot of people just assume that you're a good person. And when you dress and act like a good kid, people just don't assume that you're a horrible child. And so I would shoplift candy from stores nonstop and tons of comic books. I got to the point where I remember doing this over that summertime. I biked into a drugstore and I decided I was going to shoplift some candy, but I got in there and there was a police officer who was in the drugstore and he was walking around buying stuff and like that. And I walked in and I saw him and I decided it would be a good idea to shoplift with the police officer in the store because I saw it as a challenge. And I thought if I could do it with the police officer here in the store and get away with it, that would be like extra cool because no one is ever going to suspect you shoplifting with a police officer standing right next to you. So I did. And I remember I went up and I'd take like candy and I put it in my pockets, but then I would also go pay for something. So I'd buy those. I wouldn't just walk out. I'd go and pay for something and do it that way. And I did where I stood like right next to the police officer and he was like, I had a little conversation with him. He was like, how are you doing, son? I'm like, I'm doing fine, officer man. And I bought like a couple candy bars and then had like the other 12 candy bars like hidden in my clothing somewhere. And then I walked out and had all the candy bars and I thought I was the coolest person in the world. And the worst part about that is it only emboldened me. it made me stronger and more confident with all of my thievery. So I decided to keep doing it more and more. This goes entire 8th grade summer. I go into my freshman year of high school, so 9th grade. I'm now starting my 9th grade thing, and I'm starting from that point. Hang on one second. I'm going to stop sharing here. Let's bring it back to there. And let's make sure this guy, spotlight, to here so you can see me. Yeah. And so I got bolder and stronger with all the stuff that I was doing from there, and things were going pretty well. Start my freshman year. Freshman year, things go pretty well. I end up going out for the wrestling team. I started wrestling my 8th grade year, and I really enjoyed it. It turns out that, one, small secret I wasn't going to tell you guys yet, I'm going to do a bonus Zoom on Friday, completely optional. And the bonus Zoom on Friday, I've gotten into one fight in my life, like actual fight, fist punching, knock a person down, blood. I'm going to tell that story on Friday because typically it's my last day story that I only get to tell like a handful of classes. So I'm going to run a bonus Zoom on Friday if you want to, where I will tell you the story of how I got into a fight. And it actually connects back to me in 8th grade because that's when my fight happened. And I was on the football team in 8th grade. And then after being on the football team, I started wrestling. And it turns out I was awful at football because football requires skills. Wrestling, I was really good at because even though I love wrestling, it did not require as much skills. Essentially, wrestling is really practiced falling. Your goal is to fall on someone and then hold them down and just wiggle a lot so they can't get up. And I was really good at falling on people and wiggling. Plus, I had a bonus thing of this thing called a younger brother. And so I could practice all of my skills on him, which made me much stronger. And so actually, I became a fairly decent wrestler from beating up on my brother. Here's the ironic part. My brother became a better wrestler than me because he had to put up with me beating on him all the time. So while I was getting better wrestling someone smaller than me, he got even better than me by wrestling someone bigger. So I actually made my brother a really good wrestler. But anyway, joined the wrestling team my freshman year, and things were going pretty well. I was on the wrestling team, and in high school, your wrestling season starts earlier. Like in junior high, wrestling doesn't start until like November, December. But when you're in high school, it starts earlier, like September. You have like training, practice, and stuff like that. So we're going to fast forward my freshman year. I still shoplift on occasions when I went out, wasn't doing it as much. But then one day, I hit upon a thing where I wanted to become more popular again. So here was my I want to become more popular plan. I started shoplifting a whole bunch of candy, like loads of candy, way more than anyone should. And then I would put it into a bag, like a backpack, and I would come to school and I would just give the candy to other kids. And I became sort of known as like this candy guy, where I would just go around and hand out the candy to all the different people and stuff like that. And I thought it was making me the coolest person in the world. People would come by like, hey, Broviac, you got Starburst? I'm like, yeah, man, like how much are you? I'm like, nah, man, I got you, boo, don't worry about it. And I would just like hand out all this candy to other people. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Stuff was going well. Till one day, I was in the hallway. And I remember, I think this was outside my English class. And I was still having trouble with the ladies. Even though that I thought I was all that and giving out candy everywhere, apparently that was not as impressive to the women folk as I thought. Apparently women like it when you can actually talk to them. And that was not a skill that I had. Whenever I tried to talk to women, I would freak out and get all blushy and mumbly and stuff like that. But I saw this one kid who had Binanca breath spray. And if you don't know what Binanca breath spray is, let me show you real quick because I have a thing for you. Share this. This is Binanca breath spray. And it looks like that. And I saw this one kid who had it, and he was like in my English class, and he would sit there and spray it in his mouth instead of like having like gum. He would just open up his mouth like psh, 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 and spray it in there. And then he would talk to the ladies, and he had like really good breath. And I remember like one girl at one point said something about, she's like, hey, Jeremy, you've got good breath. And I remember thinking that was the secret. I was like, if I had snapping good breath, the ladies would dig me. Like that was the last thing I needed to jump over from being uncool to cool, was having really good breath. That's what I convinced myself of. So I decided to go about doing it. So that day we had a wrestling meet. And unlike here in the junior high, like the day you have a wrestling meet, you either have to go home or you like go to the coach's room after school. In high school, that's not how it is because they treat you like big people. So in high school, whenever you have like a wrestling meet or something like that, they would just say, hey, we're leaving at 4:15, go do a thing and then come back and then you should be good to go. So kids would wander the school, wander the grounds, go and stuff like that. Well, I went to school at Noblesville High School. In Noblesville High School, right behind the high school is like a strip mall. And they had the McDonald's there, and they had like a bunch of different stores you could go to and stuff like that. And so my whole wrestling team, well, it was probably like 20 of us, all these freshmen, because we couldn't drive anywhere because we were only 15 years old. We decided to walk over to McDonald's after school before the wrestling meet. We go over to McDonald's, and we're hanging out there. Remember, we're idiots. We got like a whole bunch of French fries and stuff like that. We're throwing them at each other. We got kicked out of McDonald's because that's what high schoolers do because you're idiots. But we decided from there to go over to this CVS store that was right in this little strip mall. It was between the McDonald's and school, like on the way back. And we walked into it. I decided this was going to be the day that I was going to shoplift breath spray. And so I was going to impress the ladies by getting some breath spray. So with that one, here, click over. I got to show you how the store was set up. So, because this has a roll coming up in a moment. So the CVS had like these double doors where you would come in one set of doors and then there's like a little waiting area and like a second set of double doors you'd go through. Like I don't think almost every store has those now. But they did not have the automatic sliding doors because this was back in the dinosaur times. So in order to come in, you had to actually push on the door like an old normal person. And theirs was set up slightly different where it wasn't one, it had like two, like one where you'd come in and go to the right to enter, and then like one where you'd go out to the left, that would be like for the exit to come through. So there's like two separate doors you could go through. And that's gonna play a role here in a moment. Come on, click. So I walk into the store with me and probably 10 other of these high school wrestlers. And I was not the only one that was shoplifting. A whole bunch of these kids were. We'd all started doing it together as like a bad habit gang. And so they were all walking around and like grabbing different things and stealing them and they were shoplifting a ton, like way more than I normally did. They were just going in there and taking like entire things of candy and like just throwing them in their coat. And I'm thinking, oh, you guys are a bunch of idiots. And I was like, you know what? I didn't need any candy. I already had like a whole bag full of it, so it wasn't going to be a big deal. So I didn't worry about it too much. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go grab that breath spray, and that's going to be it. So I didn't know where the breath spray was because I'd never picked it up before. So I start walking up and down the aisles while the other guys like all went to the candy aisle and the food aisle like that. And they went to go get their combos and their Cheetos. I was walking up and down the aisles trying to figure out where the breath spray was. Found it. Now the breath spray, it comes in this little packaging. If you can see it on there, it's called a bubble packaging. We have like the cardboard backing and then it was attached to it. There's like this little plastic like wrap around it. It's like, so that's how it attaches to it. So it was a really easy thing to open. So I found the breath spray and I'm walking around the store trying to figure out how the best way to steal it was. So I went all the way to like the side of the store. If you're looking at the picture now, imagine going all the way over to like that health aisle. Well, I'm like, there's no one on my left because it's like a wall and there's just an aisle on my right so no one can see me. And it was a completely empty aisle. So I walk down that aisle and I just rip open the packaging. Grab with one hand, right hand, pull off the front of it, pull out the breath spray, put it into my pocket, and I take the other two parts of it and I just shove them into a shelf somewhere and just cram them in there and I just keep walking. Genius, perfect, no witnesses, no one's gonna see me. I was great. And I just keep walking from there. At that point, I sort of wander around until I can see the other kids in the store. Like I talked to a couple of the other wrestlers that are in there and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take off. I'm out of here. I'll see you guys back at school. I'm like, all right, Brovi, whatever. And I'm like, I just had my one thing. And I'm like, y'all are a bunch of idiots. You're going to get caught with all you're trying to steal. I'm not going to try and do anything like that. So walking out of the store, I go up to where the little front area is. And I remember, I'm going to try and describe it as best I can. They're little checkout lines. Like anytime you've been into like a CVS or a Walgreens, like right as you're leaving, they have like a little checkout area where you can buy stuff. I remember I had my best friend, Eric Brown, and like another guy were at the little checkout aisle and they were buying stuff. And I just walked by them. I wasn't buying anything this time. I was like, hey, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go ahead and head to school. And like, all right. And I got to the exit and there's the two doors. You push open one door and then you walk in like a little waiting area. And I had to turn and you had to push the second door and that's how you would exit. So I push chair here a bit. So I push open the first door to get through, and I remember turning and I'm walking. I had my hand on the little door to exit, and I remember starting to push it. It was a sunny day out, 'cause I think it was like September, Octoberish, and I was pushing that door open when I felt a hand come down on my shoulder. It was that whole, and it was a heavy hand that hit. And the voice behind me was a male voice, and it said, "Son, where do you think you're going?" And I hadn't turned around yet. I remember standing there with my hand on the door, and I heard the voice and the hand on my shoulder. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where that's happened, where you've had heavy hand come down on your shoulder, where you know nothing good comes from that next part, but there is a sinking feeling that happens in like your inner bits that is really hard to describe. And that's what hit me, especially when I knew I was doing something wrong. So a couple thoughts go through my head. And I only tell you this so that you can understand my thinking at the time. I'm 15 years old, I'm a guy, and I'm a wrestler. So I have my hand on the door, and my thinking at this moment is, whoever this person is behind me is older than me, and there's no way he's a wrestler. And I've been training for 2 years at this sport. I can spin, knock his hand off, and make it out that door before he could possibly catch me. And I can run for it. And there's no way he's going to be able to get to me. And I start processing how to do this in my head. But at the same time, I also think, well, if there's cameras in the store, there's every chance they're going to have a picture of me. Or, and then the other part goes, wait a minute. This whole store is full of kids from my school, other wrestlers on my team. And we all know snitches get stitches. But at that same time, the chances of one of them ratting me out to not get in trouble is pretty strong. And if they give up my name, then they're going to show up at school or wrestling practice, and they're going to arrest me in front of like all of my other friends there. So I had this decision, and I can still remember it to this day. Do I run now and have a chance of getting away and have a chance of them arresting me at the wrestling meet, or do I turn around now and deal with whatever's going to happen? And I made one of my toughest decisions I've ever made. I let go of the door. I remember I let go of the door, and it's just that sinking feeling, and the guy turns me around. And the guy I turn around and face was wearing a long white coat like you see the scientists wear. It was a pharmacist. And he's standing there, and in his left hand, he has the wadded up packaging that I'd had from the Binanca breast spray. And he has it in one hand. And when I turn around, he drops his other hand. He goes, "Son, were you planning on paying for this?" And I knew I was sunk at that moment. But he'd asked a question. He was like, "Do you plan on paying for this?" I'm like, "Ooh, I have a way out." I went, "Yes, I would like to pay for it." I'm like, "I'm saved. We're all good." He goes, "Yes. Well, you should have done that before you tried to walk out. Come with me." And he moves around and then pushes me back to the store with his hand again on my shoulder. And he marches me through the store with his hand on my shoulder back past the checkout area with my friends who were right there. So I'm guessing he was like running behind me as I tried to exit. So as I went past that checkout, he must have been right there behind me the whole time. But he marches me back through the store, past down the aisle with all of the other wrestlers coming out of the aisles and staring at me. Because remember, I could look, and their like heads were popping out everywhere to look at me. And he marches me all the way through the back of the store until you get to they have like these swinging metal doors like to get back into the storage area, and he marches me back to these little metal swinging doors and takes me back through those into the back storage area. And remember, there was a table on the left, and he dropped the thing down to there, and at some point he had gotten the breath spray from me. Either he had me give it to him or he reached in my coat and got it, but at some point he had the breath spray. And so he put the packaging and the breath spray on the table, and he goes, "Sit down." And he pointed, and he pulled out this metal chair, like the little folding metal chairs, like, and he slammed the chair. He's like, "Sit down." I'm like, "Okay." And I went, and I sat down in the chair. I'm like, "Okay." And I was freaking out the whole time. I had no idea what was going to happen at this point. And then he left me sitting there in this big open like warehouse area in the back for the storage, like the boxes of all the supplies they break down and put on the shelves. And he goes over to the wall phone and he calls the police with me sitting right there. And I listened to the whole conversation. He was just like, "Hi, this is blah, blah, blah at the CVS." He's like, "Yep, we've caught a shoplifter. Yep, we have him here in the back of the store. Yes, I need you to send an officer. Thank you. Yes, we'll keep him under wrap." And like the whole time, and he just hangs up the phone and he just looks at me and he goes, "Stay there," and then leaves and just walks away. I'm assuming to go back and do his job. So at this point, I'm now just sitting in the back of this place. I did forget one other thing I forgot to mention. When walking me back through the store, because at one point I had said, I forgot, oh my goodness, brain, when he had first turned me around and asked if I was going to pay for it, and I had said, I tried to play dumb. And I'd said, like, "I don't know what you're talking about," because that's when he had told me, "We have you on camera." And that was what partly had freaked me out when he turned around and he was like, "We have you on camera. Why don't you come back? Or do you want to go see the camera?" I forgot he did say that. He's like, "Do you want to go see the camera?" And I was like, "I don't know. I want to go see the camera." And that's when I had given it to him. Ooh, the memories come back now. It's weird. That's when I had given him the Binancas and he talked about the camera thing. So now I'm sitting in the back room, freaking out, sitting there. He leaves, and it's hard to properly verbalize how it feels when you have done something this level of bad. The idea that I was pretty sure I'd screwed up my life. I was in the process of getting arrested. I did not know if my previous arrest when I was like 8 years old was still going to be on there, but I knew this was bad. I knew shoplifting was bad. I knew what I did was wrong. I knew that I got caught. I figured at this point I was going to get kicked off the wrestling team. I might get kicked out of school. I had no idea what my family was going to do to me. It pretty much felt like the end of the world. And it's hard to put into words and describe that level of heart-sinking depression of me sitting there in this chair in the back of CVS in this big open room and just this heartbreaking feeling going through everything. And again, I had thoughts I'm not proud of, but I will share with you. At this time, I was big into rap music. And so early 90s rap music had become pretty big and pretty popular. Ice-T, Ice Cube, NWA. And there was a whole bunch of stuff about how when you get arrested, you don't talk to the police. You be strong and you don't give them your name. So that was my plan, that I was not going to give the police my name and that I was going to take my time like a hard man. And then I was going to go down like that. And so I was playing it through in my head how I was not going to tell the police anything, and the fact that I was going to be strong for all of my homies, and any other number of embarrassing things you could possibly imagine. That's what's going through my head. And then I look to my right as I'm sitting in this chair, and all of 8 feet away from me, from probably like you to the wall of your room, is the exit door to the back of the store. And there's just a metal door just to leave. It's literally, I turn and look, it's right there. There's no one around me. I can get up and I can just run out that door. Now it does say alarm will sound, but I figure by the time they get to me, there is no way that they're going to, be able to figure out where I am and I can disappear. And if I wait long enough, all of my friends will be gone. So there's no way they can have any of my friends rat me out. So I'm thinking, this is a genius level idea. Ice Cube would be proud of my plans. So I start thinking through how I'm going to end up doing this, how I can turn, I can run, I can make it out that door. I just have to wait long enough for all my friends to be gone. So I'm sort of checking my watch. And then the thought recurs to me about him talking about the camera, about the fact that we have you on video. And my mind starts going through the idea of, if I run, they're going to take that video and they're going to go over to my high school and they're going to show that video to the people at the high school. And they're going to say, one of your kids we think was a wrestler is, and they're going to show, and they're going to find out who I am. And then in my mind, I imagine them walking into my math class with me sitting there learning with police officers and dragging me out in handcuffs. And I was positive that's what would happen. So I didn't run, but I really, really wanted to. And I can still feel that desire in my heart of seeing that and thinking about what a great idea it would be. Instead, what I did was cry. because I was heartbroken and I was not as strong and thuggy as Ice Cube. And I was scared. And I cried. Now, not big weeping tears, but there was definitely crying. And I remember thinking about my English class because oddly enough, it's weird the things that go through your head in traumatic moments like that. And for me, we had to memorize a poem in our English class for a speech because, English teachers make kids give speeches because they're mean. And we had to memorize any poem we wanted and give it to as a speech. And I still remember the poem I had to remember because while I was sitting there trying to stop crying, I kept repeating the poem over and over in my head. If you've ever read Shel Silverstein, there is a Shel Silverstein poem where there's a farmer watching the queen come by and he's talking to all these different animals, talking about the queen who's passing by. That was the poem I kept going over and over again in my head. For me, until the day I die, when I see that poem, all I think about is me sitting in the back of a CVS crying, repeating that poem over and over to myself to try and get past it. I don't know how long I was sitting there, probably a half hour or so. And then all of a sudden I hear noise and the big swinging double doors go flying open and in walks this giant cop. Big guy. He comes walking back in there with the pharmacist, I'm guessing the white coat, comes in with him. And the police officer goes, "Is this him here?" And the pharmacist looks over me and goes, "Yeah, that's him." And the cop looks over and he looks down at the left little table and he goes, "Is this what he tried to steal?" And he sees the breast spray right there. And the pharmacist goes, "Yep, that's what he tried to steal." And the guy looked down at it and he looked over at me and he goes, "What kind of an idiot are you? Breath spray? That's what you stole? Breath spray." I'm just like, I already felt bad. And then having this random strange cop sit there and yell at me, it was just like, I just kept shrinking. But don't worry, it gets worse. So police officer man comes over to me. I don't remember anything like reading my rights. Maybe he did, but that's not a memory that sticks out to me. What I do remember is at this point, I have to stand up and he turns me around and he puts handcuffs on behind me. So not in front of me, but he put handcuffs on each of my wrists. If you've never worn handcuffs, like real handcuffs, not like the little plastic handcuffs you get from the grocery store and you want to play when you're a kid. I mean like actual police issued steel handcuffs, they are god awful. They are pinchy and mean and metal and cold in ways that are hard to describe. And so I remember he put them on there and it was like ka-chink, ka-chink, and then ka-chink, ka-chink, and it hurt like a snap. If you can grab your wrist now, there's these two little bones that are on either side of your wrist. That is what the handcuffs are made to pinch into. And there's nerves that run along those and they hurt. That is hard to even explain. So he pinched him on there and I went, "Ow!" And I'm like, "That hurts." His response was, "Good." And that was it. And I was like, "Oh." And then he does the whole picking you up by the shoulder thing like this and then walks me back through the store with my handcuffed hands behind me and hit this police officer next to me and he walks me back to the store. Things I remember at this point from my memory. As I'm walking back through the store and then going through the aisles, I remember as soon as we went through, it had a big final aisle. It was wider than all the other ones. And so I remember going through there and looking over to my left and there was a mom and her daughter, a younger girl. I remember them looking up and seeing me. And the mom's face changing from curiosity to fear and disgust. And then she took her small child, who's probably 7 or 8 years old, and moved this daughter so that she was behind the mom, which doesn't seem like much until you realize what that implies about you is that you are such a horrible person that this lady felt she had to protect her daughter from me. And it was an added level of just crushing awfulness. And just that I already felt horrible. And then seeing that, I was just like, ugh. And then he walked me through the whole store. Did not see any of my friends or other wrestlers, which was a good thing. I remember walking past the front checkout area, going through the double doors again. And remember, because I couldn't, my hands were behind my back. He pushed open one double door, and then he goes to the second double door. I remember when he pushed open the second double door, my thinking being, wow, last time I was here, I was free. And just my life has changed from being in this one spot to being in this one spot again. And how much my life was over from being in that one spot to now. It was a weird sensation. And then he pushes it open, and it was a bright sunny day outside, and his police car was sitting right there, like right in front of the store with the lights going. No siren, just lights going. Remember, he walks me up to the front of the police car, and he opens up the front passenger door. And I remember as I got ready to sit down, I look up, and I could look down the side of the building. And the side of the building was to the very edge, like the course, like the building, like a corner of it, because it was not like in a strip mall where that didn't have edges. It had like the edge, it was like the last building. So the edge of it, I looked down there, and there were heads peeking around it. And there were 4 of my wrestler friends who had stayed to watch me get arrested. And I could see their little heads like peeking around, like watching the entire time. And I remember because I looked over there, and I remember I just sort of like did like a, and the police officer like looked at me and then looked over and saw all the heads. And as soon as he looked at them, all their heads disappeared, like they all disappeared again. And I remember he laughed, like, look at that, criminal. You've got a fan club. And again, it was just a sickening one. He called me criminal, which I still remember because I was, but it still hurt. And the fact of him just laughing at me with that. And you could hear them like laughing and giggling and like running off down the alley, like, because that's what friends do. Friends stick around to watch you get arrested so they can tell you the story years later, which my friends do. Eric Brown. You can ask him about it. And he was there. He was the one that stayed to watch me get arrested because friendship. So now he then puts me into the front seat. Things I remember getting into the front seat. Still memories that pop up. 1, there was a shotgun bolted down, like an emergency, I don't know if like riots, but there was a shotgun like where you normally have like the glove compartment where you keep like Kleenexes and like the driving stuff. It was like closed, and there was a gun pointed like right at my face. So when I got in, I had to like move my face around the shotgun to sit down because I couldn't do it easily because still in handcuffs. And then also when I sat down, he had to lean in and do the seatbelt for me because I couldn't. So I sat down with my hands behind me, and he grabbed the seatbelt, and then he clicked it in. Remember, like I'm sitting there with the seatbelt on, the front seat of the police car, with the shotgun pointed right at my face, and just like, And then he comes around and he gets in. And again, he says a small thing, which stays with me to this day. He gets into the car, sits down, puts on his seatbelt, and then sits for a second, looks over at me, and me just sitting there like this. He just goes, "Hey, criminal, try not to steal anything while you're in my car. I'd appreciate it." And that was it, which again, doesn't seem like a big thing, but it was soul crushing to me at the time. The fact that, again, I am a criminal. I did this horrible thing, and he had every right to say that to me. It broke a part of me on the inside. It was awful. Now, the way memory works is it sort of jumps around at this point. I don't remember like the drive there. In Noblesville, it's much smaller than Fishers. So like literally it was like a 3-minute drive from that store to the police station. It isn't really fast. We were right there. Remember at the police station, I don't remember going inside. The next memory I have is being in his office. And his office was small. I'm like the size of like one of our small bathrooms at school, like his whole office. It was a really small area. I remember he took off the handcuffs, and eventually like I gave him my name because I was not hard like Ice Cube. So I went ahead and like immediately was like, "What's your name?" Like, "David Brovi." I gave him like my birthday and stuff like that. I gave him my mom's phone number. And I remember he called my mom at work. And I can remember sitting there and listening to him talk to my mom. And again, heartbreaking moment. Just awful. I'm listening to him say, "Yes, is this Judy Davis?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's my mom's name." Judy Nelson at the time. "Yes." And he goes, "Yeah, I have your son here at the police station." No, he's fine." "No, he's under arrest." "Yes, ma'am." I said, "Arrest?" "Yes, ma'am." "He was arrested for shoplifting." "Yes, ma'am, we have the correct person." And I remember just sitting there the whole time, just like, just listening to his side of the conversation. He's like, "Yes, ma'am. He'll be here until you arrive." "Yes, ma'am. Please come as quickly as you can." "Thank you, ma'am." And like, he just hung up and then just left. Like, I just sat there, and he did like paperwork. I don't know, police officers have like an actual job. They have like paperwork. I remember him like sitting there doing like paperwork, and I'm sitting across from him at this little desk and just sitting there, just going through my head how badly my life is now ruined. At this point, I figure my wrestling career is done. My high school career is done. All of these things are over. My mom's going to beat me when she gets there. All of these things are awful. But I have a couple memories. One, the officer does one more thing that sticks with me. I'm sitting in his office, and I'm looking around the room trying to distract myself from the tears as best I can. And as I'm looking around this whole office, on one of the walls, he had wanted posters, like of all of these different criminals, like the actual like wanted posters that you see, like from movies, but he actually had them on his wall, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world, because I'd never really seen wanted posters. And there's like a whole wall of them. And so I'm sitting there and I just keep looking up at it. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of neat. And he looks up a couple times doing this tappy, 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 looks over at me, tappy, tappy, then finally like stops, looks at me, looks at what I'm looking at, and looks at back at me, and he just goes, oh, did you find some relatives over there? Relatives of yours? I bet you probably did. And then just kept going. And I was like, oh, it was just like such a gut punch. Like, ka-chink, my heart just broke. Remember, I'm like, well, I'm not looking at those anymore. I'm like, I'm just going to stare at the ground now because I'm just not going to make you cry. And so I just remember staring at the ground and like just that whole like watery eye thing. And like, it was just an awful feeling. And then my mom shows up. That's my next memory. Sitting in the office, door opens, and my mom comes in. And I know teenagers a lot of times have rough relationships with parents. But I did not. My parents and me got along really well. They were great parents. And for the most part, I was a pretty good kid, except for getting arrested 3 times. But, every kid goes through that. But my mom came in, and I remember she opened the door, and she stood there for a second, and she looked at me and looked at the officer. And she only said one thing. She goes, hon, is this true? I just went, yeah. And then she just turned around and left. And just walked out and like was gone. And I was like, and the officer was like, you should probably go after her. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember I got up and just followed my mom. And like, she didn't talk to me. She went up and like, there was like a checkout area where you had to like go and do like a checkouty thing and like sign out stuff. And she did like a little sign outy thing. And I remember I'm just like standing next to her. I'm like, I don't know, but there was no yelling at me. It was just, that was it. And then we just left from there and went out to her car. Real quick, I'm going to show you guys a picture of the car. So there, because I still remember this car to this day. Let's give you guys a quick view of it. It was what's called a Pontiac Bonneville. And this was the car that we're driving home in, this gray Pontiac Bonneville. And I'm sitting in the front right seat, and she was driving. So for this next part of it, this is the part that I remember being in that front seat for the whole thing. So I remember getting in the front seat and we're driving home. It's probably about a 15-minute drive from the police officer back to our house in Noblesville. And I give my mom credit. Parents don't know what they're doing. I don't know if that's a secret for you or not, but we make up a lot of the stuff we do as we go along. And a lot of times teenagers give parents situations that they're not prepared for. And there's no way this is a thing that my mom was prepared for. And I don't know what I expected to have happen, but what she did was not what I expected. I expected yelling and screaming, but that's not what I got. What I got was so much worse. Disappointment. I just remember sitting there, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. I put my feet up on the where the shotgun would be in the cop car. I put my feet up, I wrapped my hands around my knees, and I leaned my head against the cold window. And I remember just watching the trees go by, and my mom just going, so you did this. This is who I raised. This is my son. My son is a criminal. My son is a thief. Do you know what that means about you? And it was just that, the whole drive, just no yelling, just disappointment, just how could you possibly do this? How can you be my son? How can you be the person I raised? And everything she said just broke me. Every time it was just another piece of my heart was like snap, 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 snap. By the time we got home, we pull in and she just goes, I think you should head up to your room. We'll talk when your dad gets home. And I'm like, oh, and I remember just going up to my room. I remember laying on my bed, laying on and then staring up at the ceiling. And I can still to this day, 30 some years later, picture everything that went through my head. And I imagined my world was over because everything I cared about up to this point was being popular. And that was done. There was no way I was going to be popular now. Then I realized my mom's right. I'm a criminal. That's how everyone is going to picture me now, as a criminal. I've been an A student until now. I'm going to go to school tomorrow, and my teachers are going to know I'm a criminal and I got arrested. The kids at school are going to know I'm a criminal and I got arrested. any girl I try to ask out because homecoming was coming up or a dance was coming up, how do I ask out a girl who's not, her first thought's not going to be, oh, you're the criminal. I was prepared to drop out of school. I was like, I'm 15 years old. I'm done. I'm not going to be able to keep going to school after this. And I didn't know what my parents were going to think. I didn't know what my grandparents were going to think. And the level of depression that hit me at that moment was to a degree that is hard to forget to this day. I remember just laying on my bed and staring up at my ceiling and just wanting it all to end, wanting to go back in time, find a way to stop old me from making those poor choices. But I knew that couldn't happen. So I was going to have to face whatever came forward. And I heard my dad come home. And my dad is not angry, yelly, beady kind of person. That's not who my father was. My father is an absolute outstanding dad. And he was my stepdad, not my blood father, my stepdad who I'd had since I was a young child. But he loved me and it was incredible. But I heard him come home, but you never know what a parent's going to do when you find out that your child has been arrested by the police. That puts parents in an interesting predicament. And so I hear the door close downstairs and I can't hear a conversation, but I know he's home. I know they're talking. So now I'm just waiting. I'm like, what happens next? What happens next? What happens? And I hear the footsteps coming up the stairs. And we're just laying there and the door opens and my mom and dad both come in. He'd been home probably a half hour, 45 minutes before this happened. And I sit up and they come in and they sit down like on chairs in my room. And they go, hon, we need to talk. I go, okay. And they go, do you realize what you did was wrong? I'm like, oh God, yes. Like that's an easy one. I absolutely know I did was wrong. I've been thinking about that this whole time. And they go, all right. We've been thinking about what we're going to do to punish you. One, you're grounded. I'm like, yeah, I figured that was going to happen. And they go, two, your punishment is you're going to school tomorrow. You're going to wrestling tomorrow. You're going to school the day after that. You're going to wrestling the day after that. Your punishment is you don't get to avoid this. And I remember thinking at the time, that's my punishment. Your punishment is you're making me go back and do the things I do every single day. That's a punishment. And as a kid, I thought I got off easy. What I didn't know was that my parents were geniuses. They are so much smarter than I gave them credit for at the time. Because what they followed up with is, hon, we're not letting you off easy. What we're giving you is the worst punishment you can have. And I remember looking at them confused. And they go, here's what you have to understand. Your life changes as of this moment. Moving forward, every interaction you're going to have at school and at wrestling, your poor choice is going to be the first thing that people think about. People are now going to interact with you differently. People are going to treat you differently. What you need from us now is not pain and not anger. You need love from us more now than ever, because the world is going to throw so much hate and anger at you that you are going to need us on your side more than ever. And it just didn't seem like a real thing at that time. Thank God that this was before we had social media, because I could not imagine if there was social media and they had been like filming me getting put into a cop car and they had put that up on TikTok or something like that. It would have been insane. This was before this. But back in my day, you had to actually call people on the phone to spread rumors. But I remember going to school that next day was the worst moment of my life, to the point that I absolutely remember it still to this day. And I've had low moments in my life, but that next day of school was the worst day of my life ever. And it started on the bus. Because I remember getting on the bus going to school thinking this was my last time of safety, because kids wouldn't know about it yet. But kids already knew, because kids had talked and kids had called. And even walking down the aisle of the bus, I had those kids who would look at me, look at the person next to them, and then you could hear the whispering began. And I saw as I walked down, and part of it is I don't know how much of it was perceived in my own brain, how much of it was actually happening, but it started on the bus ride that day. I remember just sitting on that bus ride, and every time I'd look around, I would see the kids' faces looking at me and then looking other ways. And if you've ever been the center of something like that, where you know everybody's thinking and talking, and they're afraid to look at you about it, it is such a crippling, horrible thing to be in the middle of. And that was just the beginning. So then I get to school, and that's where the bullying starts, I guess is the best way to say it. Kids are awful. It's one of the reasons why I love teaching, is because I think that's how you make a difference in the world. And kids are not mean, they're just awful sometimes. And at school, I got there, and there were packages of Binanca and breath mints taped all over my locker. First thing I did, got there, and like someone had already gotten there early, probably one of the kids from the wrestling team, taped all over it. So I just rip all those things down. It's the things that you see in the movie that like would not happen today, because there's no way I would let that happen in my school. But back in my day, that was like just those things you see in movies, they actually happened. And those were taped onto my locker. Remember, it's like, and then you just hear like the giggling and the laughter in the hallways and stuff like that. And kids just randomly walking by and like loudly talking about bad breath next to me, right? Walking like, hey, Joey, you want a mint? I know someone who needs one too. And just stuff like that everywhere throughout the hallways. And I'm like, fine. My friends were nice. I mean, friends harass you. That's what friends do. Like even Eric Brown, who's my best friend at the time, would harass me some, called me an idiot, but I was an idiot. But they forgive you and move on, because that's what good friends do. And my friends would support me. It was all the other kids throughout the day. And I just remember that throughout the entire day of that happening. But it's the little things kids did that they didn't realize they were doing. One of the biggest ones I remember was going into my advanced English class, which I thought was my safe area. And first time I'd been in an advanced English class was my freshman year. And I remember going in there and walking to my seat down there with all these other good, smart kids, and kids who had known me for years. And there was a girl, really nice girl, pretty, outgoing, friendly. As I walk by her, she looks up, like smiling, talking to a friend, looks up, sees me, and I see her expression change. And her expression just goes from all of a sudden to like more of one of fear. And then she just does a subtle thing. She reaches over and takes like her pencil pouch that had been on her desk, and then just slid it over to one side, and then kept having a conversation. It doesn't seem like a big thing, but it hit me harder than any of those kids yelling at me in the hallway. Because it meant this girl who known me for years, I have changed her opinion of me. And all of a sudden now she has to hide stuff from me. Now she sees me as a criminal. And that was one of those things that broke me so much. I could take random idiots yelling at me, but having a kid I thought knew me do something like that. So anyway, got through the day. It was rough, but I got to it. Then I get to wrestling. And with wrestling, that was so much worse. So here's how I found out my wrestling coach found out about me getting arrested. So it was an away meet, and they were on the bus ride there when the coach was doing attendance and going down the roster and calling out names. And he eventually got to my name. And he was like, Brown, Bobby, and he gets to like Broviac. And I can't answer because I'm in the process of being arrested. So at this point, other kids start laughing. He's like, why? Why are you guys laughing about Where's Broviac? And they all start yelling, he got arrested. And he's like, no, seriously, where's Bro? And so he finds out on the bus ride that I got arrested. He was irate. And he was not a happy, friendly coach. He was I'm going to coach you by yelling at you and trying to make you cry, even if you're in high school. I don't care. The more you cry, the better it's going to be. He was a big, scary man. So wrestling practice that day. He doesn't address it directly. I show up to wrestling practice that day, and I'm like, all right, all the other guys of the high school, the juniors and seniors, the older kids on the team, like giving me a hard time, making fun of me. We get in there, we do like our warm-up drills and stuff like that, and the coach comes in, he's like, hey, we had an event happen yesterday that's going to impact this wrestling team, and I think it's important that we get an idea across. If you make a poor choice and you get arrested for something, that reflects poorly on me as your coach. It reflects on this team. When you do something that idiotic, it makes all of us look bad. Do you understand? And the whole team's like, uh-huh. And they're all looking at me, and I'm like, and I'm trying to melt into the floor. And he goes, all right, so here's what we're going to do for today. I think we should practice doing some throws. I think that'll sort of help us get us some of our anger out. And I'm like, all right, throws aren't bad. So if you don't know in wrestling, a throw is where you grab a person and you throw them through the air. And there's safe ways of doing it, and there's painful ways of doing it. And so I was like, all right. So I go to match up with a guy from my weight class that I normally wrestled with, who was also a freshman like I was. And I go over there, and the coach goes, Broviac, I already have your partner for you. I went, who's my partner? And he goes, Laux, and snapped his fingers. Laux was our heavyweight. He weighed 275 pounds.
I'm shutting the door.
And
Zoom meeting in 9 minutes.
That's fine. Your sister opened it. I weighed about 130 pounds my freshman year. And so Laux was not 275 pounds of fat. He was 275 pounds of just muscle. He looked just huge. And Laux was my wrestling partner for that day. And my eyes got humongous. And I couldn't complain because then coach was like, why don't you just leave the team? And I think that's what coach was trying to get me to do. Coach wanted me to quit, but I was too dumb and stubborn to quit. So I decided that I was just going to go through with it. Now, what we did that day is what's called a headlock throw. And the way the headlock throw works is you grab someone by the head, you grab their arm, and you throw them over your shoulder, and then they come down and they hit the ground. There's a safe way of doing it where you grab their arm and you bring them over and you sort of like ease them down to the ground. They can't fight it, and it's called a headlock throw. There's also the improper way of doing it where you grab them, and it's more like what you see in WWE, and you throw them and their body goes through the air and then lands on the ground. It's illegal because you can definitely hurt somebody doing it this way. That's how Laux chose to do it. And I remember Laux grabbed me the first time and then threw me, and my feet like whistled through the air, and then boom, I hit the ground and all the air shot out of my body. I was like, and then he got back up, and then Laux goes in, and then coach goes, all right, other guy's turn. So I go over, I'm like, I go over to Laux, and he goes, all right, now your turn. And I try to throw Corey Laux, who outweighs me by twice my weight. And I grab him, and I just went, and he would not move at all. Like there was no way I was going to throw him. And coach saw this, and coach goes, oh, well, Broviak, I don't think you can throw him. That's not going to work. And I went, I don't think so either, coach. He goes, Laux, I guess you're going to have to take both turns then. I went, my eyes got humongous. And Laux goes, and the whole knuckle pop, it popped his knuckles, grabbed me, and then threw me again. So I got thrown every time. There was no alternating. And eventually, when I stopped squeaking every time he threw me, he stepped it up to the next level. He would throw me, but before I hit, he would leap into the air and then land on top of me. How he did not end up breaking my ribs, I have absolutely no idea. That's how the whole practice went. Stuff like that the entire time. It was awful. Then we get to the end of practice, and practice ends, and the coach does one more talk about the impressions that we make. And I remember I'm sitting there, like, I made it through. It's like, I could do this. I'm strong like bears, like, rawr. I'm not going to die. Everything is good. But coach was not done. Coach finishes, and he gets down to practice. He's like, listen, I know mistakes were made, but I think it's important that we make an impression and that you understand you cannot make mistakes like this kind of thing again because it reflects poorly on the team. We have leaders on this team. My juniors and seniors are leaders. And I think my leaders need to make sure everyone understands nothing like this ever happens again. You understand what I mean? And then my coach gets up and walks out of the room and leaves me and the other wrestlers in there. The juniors and seniors then proceeded to pound on me, much like what you see in movies. One of the things they did is we had what was called a throwing dummy. And a throwing dummy is like, it's a fake, it's like a big mannequin, but it weighs about 150 pounds. And you would use it for like test throwing. It's like, looks like a big stick man. Arms are out, the legs are out like that. It's got a little head. It's about 5.5 feet tall and used to practice. So they took me and they mat taped me. It's like mat tape is this really powerful tape. It's like duct tape, but 4 times as strong. And they wrapped my arms to it, my legs to it, wrapped my body to it, and then took turns throwing me through the air. And they would throw me and I would land on it. And then they would hold me up and they would run and flying tackle into me. They would sit there and just run and kick. It was awful. And they did this for their 15, 20 minutes until they got tired of it and eventually threw me into a corner of the wrestling room, upside down, so head down, my feet stuck in the air, taped to a wrestling dummy. I can't free myself because my arms and legs are taped. They just turn off the lights and they leave and just leave me there for the night and figuring they didn't care anymore. And I remember sitting there taped to this dummy, hanging there upside down, and it was awful. And I remember thinking all kinds of horrible thoughts about myself, about how I deserved it, about how this was a thing that deserved to happen to me because I was a horrible person, being a bad person. That's just, and it was a bad day, and it was very sad. And I remember eventually my friend Eric Brown, who I've mentioned before, eventually came back in and freed me. He had a pocket knife at school. This is back when you could actually have pocket knives at school. And he snuck back in after me being upside down for about 20 minutes, and he cut me free. And then I eventually was able to leave. And it was because he had to wait for all the juniors and seniors to leave. That's why he apologized. Like, I would have come in sooner, but I was like, I had to wait for everyone to leave. He's like, now they're all gone. He's like, I thought it was pretty safe to come in. I'm like, dude, I don't blame you at all. I was like, I'm just glad you came back. I thought I was going to be here until tomorrow. Like, I'd already made plans to like start chewing on my own cheek or something. And so he was like, I remember going outside. My mom was out there and she yelled at me for being late. She was like, you're late. She's like, everyone else has already left. Why are you still? And I just remember I was like, it's been a bad day, Mom. And she was like, oh, I apologize, son. And so I didn't tell her about what happened. Like nowadays, as a coach and a teacher, you wouldn't only be fired, like you'd be arrested for that. That's insane levels of stuff that happened. But back in the dinosaur times, it was just like another day. It didn't really matter. And so it continued, and that's sort of how things went from there. Now, I did eventually have to go to court. If you've been to Noblesville, I'm going to show you a picture real quick because we're getting close to the end of my story. In Noblesville, this is the courthouse. They have a new courthouse, which you can see behind it, was like that lower building in the background, which is the new courthouse. I had to go to court in that actual courthouse, like big, tall, actual building. This angle we're looking at, that was actually the courtroom I was in. It's like up there on the top. It was actually like with a judge and like the lawyers, stuff like that in a little room. I had to go in front of the judge to go and talk to them. So this would have been about a month later. I had to get dressed up. Things at school had been rough, but things were going well, all right. I remember I got dressed up to go talk to the cop. And I remember going in there and talking to my mom. We didn't have a lawyer, so it was just her and I, and like some other people in the back, and the somewhere else on the other side, I don't know who it was, and the judge was going through. He was like, all right, your name, like David Brovi, and he goes through and starts reading the stuff off. And he's like, all right, so apparently arrested for. It says you were arrested for stealing breath spray. I'm like, yes, sir. He goes, seriously? I still remember like the judge being like, seriously? I'm just like, yes, sir. He just like shook his head like, oh my God. And he goes, well, it looks like you're a pretty good kid. You have good grades at school. Thank you, I did. He was like, and you've never been arrested before. And I was like, I haven't. Apparently, my arrest when I was 8 years old did not officially go on my record. So that was a good thing. Because apparently when you're 8 and you get picked up by the popos, they don't put that on your permanent record, because if you're too skinny to have handcuffs put on you, it doesn't become a permanent thing. I remember being like, yes, sir, I've never been arrested before. This is the first time ever. I'm a good kid. And so he gave me what was called deferred probation. If you don't know what probation is, it's a thing like we have to go in once a week and check with the probation officer and talk about what a good person you're being. When you get arrested, what you do is make sure you don't go back and make poor choices again. I got what was called deferred probation. And the way deferred probation would work is that essentially, as he explained it to me, because he goes, do you know what deferred probation is? I go, I have no idea what any of this is, sir. He goes, here's how deferred probation works. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to start you on deferred probation, which means nothing is going to happen to you. Nothing goes on your official record as long as you do not get picked up by the police before your 18th birthday. If you don't get picked up by anything by the police by the time you turn 18, then this gets completely wiped off your record and it gets expunged. It is going to disappear. So all you have to do is make it to 18 and this disappears, and we're going to say that you were a good kid. And I'm like, that's awesome, sir. Thank you. He's like, oh, I'm not done. I go, yes. He goes, but here's what deferred means. It means if you ever get pulled over by the police, if you ever get called in by the cops for anything, you are going to get in trouble for that new thing, and you're going to get this added on top of it. If you're ever out past curfew and the cop pulls you over, you're not going to get let go. I'm putting in my notes for you that whenever you get pulled over, you get taken to jail that night. If you're out with 3 other of your friends and you're all completely sober making good kid choices, he's going to let your other 3 friends go, and you are going to jail. And you're going to go to jail for that and for this thing also. We're going to put both of them together. If you're ever at a party and you're completely sober and you're upstairs and the police show up, you are going to jail. Do you understand? I'm like, oh my God, sir, yes, I understand. So all I had to do was, this is the beginning of my freshman year. All I had to do was make it to the end of my senior year, because my birthday was yesterday, so my birthday was at the end of my senior year, without getting any trouble with the police, and it would disappear. But that also meant I had to go through all of high school never having any interaction with a police officer at all, which is going to impact the story tomorrow. So I was all excited, and it definitely impacts things we're going to talk about from there. Then moving forward, things went well. I have one last thing to add to the story before we get done with it. So things did get better at school, but there's one thing I remember. This would have been about a month later, late into wrestling season. I think it's probably January-ish, somewhere right around there. I was still on the team. I never quit. I refused to quit. Finished out the whole rest of that year at the team. Things did get better. But whenever we had a wrestling meet, all my other kids on the team would leave and like go out to other places. I never would. Like I refused to leave school. I would not go to McDonald's. I would not go to any other store. I would just go sit in the hallway and do my homework and just sit there like a good kid. So one day we have a wrestling meet. I'm sitting in this back hallway of the school, just sitting there doing my homework, not thinking anything about it. When I look up and I hear this heavy tap, 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 tap of feet coming down the hall. And I look over and it's this kid named Travis. Travis was in my grade, and the tap tap was because he wore cowboy boots all the time. He was every bit of a greaser, if you can imagine, like that kind of idea. He got in trouble because he was in my grade, but in junior high, he got kicked out of school for pulling a switchblade in school because he would actually pull it out, and then he got in trouble because he would smoke on school grounds. Like he would go outside the front door and smoke. He was that kid that enjoyed getting in trouble, scared the bejesus out of me. He was in my grade, but was like 2 years older than me. I remember like sitting there and I look over, and Travis and I had never really had many interactions because his group of friends and my group of friends didn't really interact, but I knew who he was. I was pretty sure he had no idea who I was. So I'm like, it's just me sitting in this hallway by myself. And I look up and I see Travis walking down toward me. It's ka-chink, 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 ka-chink. Big black leather jacket, black t-shirt on. He had like the hair going all over the place like that and the ripped up jeans. Really cool kid, but scared me. And I see him, I was like, all right, I'm just not going to look up. I'm going to keep looking down, not going to make eye contact. We're going to be fine. So I'm sitting there like doing my work, my little notebook, ka-chink, ka-chink, feet going by, ka-chink, and they just stop right in front of me. And I'm like, crap. And then I can see the feet turn and spin. So now I can see the toes pointing right at me. And I'm like, I'm not going to look up, not going to look up, not going to pay attention, pretend I don't see him. And then he talks to me. And remember, all of a sudden, Travis goes, hey, you're Broviac, aren't you? And I was like, crap. He knows my name. I'm like, well, I can't keep ignoring him. Remember, I just like I exhaled like, whew. I looked up at him and he's just staring at me. And I go, yeah, I'm Broviac. He goes, uh-huh. You're the kid that got arrested for stealing breath spray a couple months ago, aren't you? Remember, like, are you kidding me? This is what happens. This is the point in my life where this kid gets to bully me. He's the one that gets to make fun of me because of what I've gone through in my life. Fine. At this point, I don't care. I'll take whatever it is. So I just go, yeah, it was a pretty dumb thing to do. It was a couple months ago. I got arrested for breath spray. And he just looked at me and he went, sucks, doesn't it? I went, yeah. He goes, kids were making fun of you? I went, yeah, figuring this is like his lead-in to insult me and attack. And then what happened next, I've not forgotten in 30 years. And Travis just looks at me and his expression changes and it softened. And he just goes, it gets better. I went, what? He goes, when I was in 6th grade, I got arrested for stealing a bunch of erasers from a store. And my friends made fun of me and my dad beat me. And I thought it was going to be the end of the world. But it gets better. And the level of shock that was on my face as I just stared at him, and I just went, uh-huh. He goes, kids will make fun of you for a while, but other things are going to happen. Some other kid's going to make a poor choice. Eventually, kids move on. You stay strong, you'll get through it. And then he just turned and walked away. It is one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had in my life, that he could have been mean. He could have been a jerk. He could have made fun of me. He had no reason to be nice to me. And the thing is, he was right. Within another couple weeks, some other kid did something dumb and no one else thought about it, and people stopped making fun of me. And by the end of that school year, it was like a thing of the past. It was like no one really cared about it. My friends would make fun of me because that's what friends do, but it wasn't like a thing to worry about with other people. It didn't haunt me forever. But the fact that this kid gave me some of the best advice I got from anybody during this time of my life still stays with me. And for him, I think it was just like a throwaway comment, just a random thing he said, but it had that much of an impact on me. And I did get better. I did stop stealing. That was the last time I've ever shoplifted or thieved. And looking back on it now, I cannot believe I tell that story to students, because I thought that was a story that I would have gone to my grave with. But when I told you the fact that I had Clayton show up in my classroom after he got arrested, that was the story I told him. A much shorter version of it, but that was the story I told him about the idea of that you can make mistakes like that. And I think for a lot of kids, making mistakes is normal. Making mistakes is what you're supposed to do. Making mistakes doesn't end your world, especially when you're young. You're supposed to screw up. It's part of what life is. The thing is, you're supposed to learn from those mistakes, which is why I tell you guys this story. Because I think the idea of someone like me having that dark of a spot in my life shocks people, to know that you could go from that day to the happy person I am today is absolutely possible. And I would love to say that that was the last time I got arrested and I learned my lesson. But obviously it's not, because I have a story for you tomorrow, which is going to be my last time getting arrested. But that's going to end up being a story for tomorrow. Hang on a second here. In case you did not do it earlier and you are wanting the extra credit, let me throw this one screen up for you one more time. I appreciate you guys letting me get through this one. It's a tougher story for me because it's hard to laugh off, and I still absolutely feel those emotions. It's been 30 years, almost exactly, since that happened to me, and I can still feel those things, and they stay with me to this day, which I think is a good thing. I don't want to lose those memories, but it's a matter of just learning and becoming a better person from it. So now you understand why our Zoom name was Spray and why the Socrativ name is Bad Breath. Tomorrow, you're going to have new clues for tomorrow's story, and we get to sort of see where it goes from there to help you out on that one. I apologize for going long. I know today ended up being kind of a long story, but normally when I do this during class, I have to cut out a lot of parts. I have to give kids like a much shortened version of it. So you guys have gotten one of the more detailed versions of any of my kids ever who have gotten a chance to listen to this. So that was one of the little benefits, bonuses that I guess you guys got from there. Tomorrow, we'll do another story at 10:30. Slightly different. Tomorrow is a bit more of a funny story. There are definitely some humorous bits that get to go into it. I mean, given I've watched some of you guys laugh at me today, which was fine. I went ahead and you guys laughed at my tears. It was a good bonding moment. We got a chance to connect on that one. But tomorrow is much more of an actual kind of, it has amusing bits that go into it, because I was much more of an idiot, as opposed to this one, a different kind of idiot. Speaking of people who are being idiots, Pearl, you have a question? Yes, dear. Dude, I tried to unmute you. You muted yourself again. Stop giving me a look.
Oh, okay. How did they hire you if they see your record when they, did they look at your record when they hire you as a teacher?
That is a good question, and that's the story we're going to get into tomorrow. That becomes part of tomorrow's story. Yeah, you can't try and work ahead. Nice to try, though.
Nah. And also, for my guess, I said that you had hold on. For my guess, I said that you had a bad breath and that you sprayed, like you spit on people, and that's why you got arrested, because you were spitting. But I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, you were wrong. I was definitely not spitting on people, but a solid try on that one.
I already submitted it.
Yeah, that's why I enjoy you guys coming up with the ones ahead of time. It makes it much more entertaining.
Yeah, I'm sorry that my mom was washing the dishes.
Well, you are on a mobile device. You could have gotten up and walked away.
That's what my mom's telling me to do.
Yeah, because your mom's a smart woman. You're the one that can move, not her. Good job, Mama Perla. Keep yelling at her. Ay, ay, ay. Leah, did you and your sister enjoy listening to the story? I tried unmuting you. There you go,
I
Leah.
remember listening to it like years ago.
Yeah. Just as entertaining this time, hopefully.
Yes, it was. I just remember sitting in awe. I was like, wow, the teacher's was a bad kid.
I mean, yeah, I was. There's no other way around that. I was definitely a bad kid. I mean,
And then we haven't even heard the rest of them, so.
No, I had good grades, but that, as we know, good grades does not guarantee you being a good person. And I know that because of myself.
See, life lessons. Life lessons.
Good stuff. Branson, how did you want to make fun of me today?
I don't want to make fun of you, Mr. Bro,
Oh,
but can I show you? Can I show you my cat who's being a big brain right now?
I think you had me at cat, but yes, go for it.
So I'm trying to work on my puzzle, and he just decided to lay down right on it, and I'm confused.
That's what cats do. We have 2 cats, and they do that to my wife all the time when she tries to work on her puzzle. Whereas you're not paying attention, they like to smack the puzzle piece.
Here.
Like they're trying to put it in the right spot, and they get there, and it's like, ding, and they just knock it all the way off the table.
Exactly.
Issues.
Very much.
I wish you luck. And Elijah, are you trying to say goodbye to me?
Yes. Just want to say bye.
See you, kiddo.
Kudos.
Hey, was it Whitestown? Is that where you're going?
No, it was Plainfield. I don't know what place it was, but
All right.
it's Plainfield.
Plainfield. All right, gotcha. I was trying to remember where you were moving to. I can remember the right name. Plainfield. Gotcha. All right.
It's
So-
just like it's a new addition, so like it's new built houses.
Oh,
So I'm excited because no one's lived there before, so I don't have to think about someone's already sat on that toilet before.
there's no no Corona in the house. That's good thinking.
Yeah.
And then yes, let's see. So tomorrow we get my next bad choice. Thursday will be interesting. Oh, tomorrow's video should not be as long. Today's the longest one as far as story wise. So tomorrow will be a little bit shorter because definitely this was a long story, which I apologize for. And then Thursday, honestly, I have no idea. Thursday could go short. It could go long. It's gonna be tough. Then Friday is a shorter story also, but Friday is a much funner one. Bearded Dragon. You want to see McKenna's Bearded Dragon? Yeah. Hang on, it's right here. Achoo. I know.
What's his name?
Wait, hang on. I have to find. It's so hard to control this, McKenna. I know you're trying to. Hang on a second. Let's do it this way. All right, McKenna, try to unmute yourself now.
Her name's Griffin.
What a good name. That's adorable. Yay. Ooh,
She likes to run.
Stein, that picture that you drew of me during the last story, is there a chance you're going to drop that off when you come drop off things next week?
I'm trying to because I was on my sketchbook, so I'm gonna cut it out. So hopefully I can make sure nothing's on the back of it, so that I can get it.
Just checking. I thought it was a good picture, so I thought I'd ask on that one. Maggie, did Younger Trucks make it through the entire story? Because I saw her there for part of it, and then for some reason your screen disappeared and stopped popping up, so I wasn't sure if she was there for the entire thing or not. I was just curious.
So she had to let out our puppy, and I had to keep going to messages because I had to text my dad to see what I wanted from Culver's. Yeah.
Those were legit reasons, not a problem at all. She was entertaining me with her reactions as I was telling the story. I kept watching her face, so it was making me smile.
That's why she comes to these Zooms.
Well, that interaction works for me. No complaining at all. Yay. All right. Then let's see. It's there. Oh, hang on a second. Shalini. I live for other people's misery. I love Shalini. Grabinski's cousins live in Plainfield. I'm sorry I put Giles to sleep with my story. I'm assuming it's my wonderfully melodic voice. Canvas has gone insane. That's probably pretty safe. Shoplifting, good job. But Mohammed, I was a stealer. I've just stopped doing it now. I did steal gum. And then robbed a jewelry store. James, good God, child. That's quite the, one, no. Two, thank you for the compliment that I had the skills to rob a jewelry store. I'm only taking that as a bonus. Kluber, I have not seen the message you sent me yet, in case you're still on there. I apologize. Wow, don't attack each other. Well, you got Mohammed being Mohammed. That's fine. And then no other things to yell at on there. And I think, wow, you guys really like to yell at each other. And all right. And there. All right, now I have to go back and do grading. My life is so aw, Shalini, your life is not boring. You know how I know your life is not boring, Shalini? Because you exist for me to make fun of you. So that gives it some level of not boringness because it entertains me to mock you. And there's a bad story. Oh, Grabinski, you guys really hate on yourselves. At least you guys haven't had the thing that I had. I accidentally stole from a nun. Lizzie, good God, child. We're going to have to end this before you guys start admitting. Stop admitting to crimes. It's on video. You guys are the worst criminals ever. I thought I was a bad criminal. Good God, children. All right. So I'm going to go eat some delicious lunch. You guys go hopefully eat food. Or for the 12 of you I saw cooking food the entire time you were on here, that was appreciated also because it definitely made me hungry. I get to play with my ring light. See my ring light? I was going to do the thing where you pull it down over your head, but I don't think it's going to work. But it would definitely be entertaining if I were to give it a try. TikTok! All right, and then to there. I stole an autobiography. I get to teach kids. It's fun enough. I've already written novels. That's close enough.
Yeah, Poppy wants to do TED Talk.
I know. I'm not doing a TED Talk yet either, but we'll see how tomorrow goes. Anyway, hopefully I didn't freak out too many parents. Other than that, I'm going to go upload this, and I'll put things on there, turn the stuff. See you guys tomorrow. I'm really sad. Only 2 more official ones, and then Friday's bonus one. I'll be interested to see if people actually show for that one of me getting into a fight. Enjoy. Toots. Yeah.